job in the CIA. I think DT's here. All right, so the whole history of the world is in the museum, one place or another. It's been all the bits that you really need to know. So we cut to the Egyptian bit. Obviously, Egyptian archaeology in Egyptology is a very big part of the university. So you would expect that its collection would be one of the best. I mean, let's say the Ashmolean itself is probably one of the best, one of the earliest museums in Europe, and certainly one of the best. World-class museum. Oxford has about 2 or 3 other world-class museums, right, in different aspects of human culture and stuff, partly because of the stuff they study. All right, so we're at the beginning of the Egyptian gallery. We're probably one of the most important Egyptian pieces of art anywhere, right? But you'll find lots of other ones. Hey, look, we found some stragglers. Are you? You weren't looking for us, were you? All right, sorry. Yeah, we looked around. Anyway, there you go. You missed the first half. That's all. All right. Okay, so we're at the beginning of the Egyptian gallery. There are many objects in this section that regularly appear in books and are part of some of the most important historical artifacts on the planet. Certainly in terms of Egyptian history and magic. All right, this bit may not look quintessentially Egyptian, right? It looks very tribal, and of course, if you look at that sculpture, which is probably the old, well, would have been, I would have been able to say before they got the Göbekli Tepe thing, probably one of the oldest pieces of sculpture in the world, right? Certainly from Egypt. That's its kind of very eroded state, very tribal state. If you look with a sort of great bulbous head and everything, this is part of it. And it's kind of making this, well, what sort of gesture would you say that is?
Masturbatory?
So this is
or simply
one
pride.
One of the world's oldest gods, the god Min, or Min, who's a phallic god. And interestingly, if you look, obviously the phallus is missing here, but from that one you can tell that the phallus would have been removable anyway, right? So you can piece together some of the magic. And if you think about the kind of Osirian mysteries, where there's this whole thing about the phallus of Osiris and it never gets found.
Right.
It doesn't. It kind of it gets eaten by Set, and which has to be the case. But if you look at this very old sculpture, which is older than almost anything, I should say one of the reasons you know it's so old. So you've got the temple of Isis and the god Min. Min is a bit like the Egyptian god, the Greek god Pan. Right, it's the model for the Greek. It's very like Pan. It's about raw sexuality and fertility. Also, when we did that this gesture of Horus fighting, if the arms were there, quite often Min is shown in that gesture, and you'll see it. If you look at that one over there, which is also probably Amon, emphasising what I said about sexuality being very, very blatant and very central to Egyptian magic. He's making this is in the conventions of Egyptian this is that gesture, one version of it. It's either a gesture of protection or it's a gesture of threat, raising the hand that I'm going to strike. I'm just seeing it is Min and Amon, the sort of later versions, always shown with a kind of erection. And even though they've gone through periods of removing the erections from various sculpture, and of course when they were published in books in the Victorian era, they put a label over the phallus. So for ages people couldn't say, well, what's so strange about that? There's this label there. Obviously, reproduction is the primary, and sexuality and sex itself is the driving force of an awful lot of magic. So you can assume, so Min was used for thousands of years in the temple until such a state that it got broken as you see it now. And ritual objects, when they get to that stage, the Egyptians didn't throw them away. They buried them under the floor of the temple so that the power resides. So they've always got, the power never goes away, so that even a little bit of residual power stays under the temple floor and they build a new one. It looks like it's got a removable phallus, and I think, so you could assume that in the ancient primal rites of Egypt, which never go away, this ritual that we connect with Osiris, but with other gods, involves phallus appearing and reappearing, or disappearing and reappearing, perhaps being taken out and moved around, and people being blessed with it. The other thing you can see, you can learn a piece of magic from this, is that because of what they call the baraka, the power of the stone itself, because of its magical association, people ground away the stone over thousands of years and mixed it with beer and drank it as a magical potion. And that form of magic is magical medicine as well. It's very, very common in Egypt. I mean, and it's got a connection to European alchemy, strangely enough, because one version of it involves Horus and the crocodiles. So if you ever wondered why a medieval apothecary had a stuffed crocodile, right, over the door, right? No, people say, well, that's a very strange object. There you go, they're all a load of quacks, aren't they? You know, they've got a stuffed crocodile. What's that? It's just, but actually it's a reference to Horus of the crocodiles, which is a medical thing, right? So it shows their lineage to the Horus physicians of the ancient world. All right, that's a lot. So they grind it away. You can see it's been, you'll see this, if you go to Egypt, you'll see it on all the buildings. People grind whole bits of them away over thousands or hundreds of years, and they absorb the power of it. And we can sort of still do the same thing. If you've got a statue, that's the idea. You can pour water or beer over it, you get the power, and you absorb the power physically. So magic, one definition of magic, just think this, from Egypt, magic is something you eat, right? It's not the science and blah 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 of what's it. The best definition of magic from the people who invented this stuff is magic is something you eat, in the sense of you eat the substance in order to incubate it inside the body and then manifest the power. Right? That's the technology of Egyptian magic. Things are taken into the body, transformed, and then it comes out. So in the meditation yesterday, we did this thing where from the center of the body, it kind of rose through the body and it came out as a serpent called magic. She called it magic. It's actually in the Egyptian terms it's called hekayet, but heka means magic. Hekayet is a representation of magic. So anyway, so that's just Min. Min is the source of it all. The interesting about Min is he's got the symbols that's a representation of the lettuce, right, which is his sacred vegetable, as it is for Set, who's very like him. The lettuce, why is it their favourite sacred food? Anyway, one idea is obviously the lettuce has certain latex that comes out of it that looks very like semen. It could be just as obvious as that, right? Lettuces look like they're kind of ejaculating in some way. It's also the sacred food of Set, and there's a certain amount of Setian imagery classical in this museum. So it could be that. Some people say it might be a psychoactive. I know that sounds weird, doesn't it? That costlead lettuce could be, but there is a thing called lettuce opium, I think.
Modern lettuce.
What?
Modern lettuce has been bred so much.
Yeah, maybe that's gone. Yeah, that's what people say.
Years ago, it was quite
maybe it was kind of more trippy in the past. But certainly people get wild lettuce and they make stuff out of it, don't they? They can get opium out of it, some sort of weird...
Well, there is a sedative quality to it.
There's a sedative in there.
Probably a bit stronger in wild lettuces, I'm guessing.
This other symbol is the thunderbolt, which I think is represented on there somewhere. Which of course again connects him with Set. Has been connected with thunderbolts, lettuces, the blatant sexuality, the removal of the phallus, and in order to involve it in some sort of sexual magical ritual. The power buried under, like Alan was talking about, giants. This is your giant. These statues, when Egyptians depicted statues as being of giant proportions, that's not an artistic convention. They are representing the giant, as Alan talked about in his talk. The giant is... it's funny enough, Angela Puka talked about the giant in her thing, you know, how this was this important archetype, right? Which most people think is just some sort of fairy tale. But in the ancient world, the idea of the giants under the floor, or manifested in statues, is quite important. You're gonna head off? All right. Yeah. Look, it's really good to see you and everything. Yeah.
Take care, yeah?
See you soon. Take care. You did good.
See you, Steve.
Mogg,
Take care. Thank you. All right.
I mean, you have the same thing in China, like they had powdered jade. But they didn't realise that it was kind of poisonous, of course. So, they ingested all sorts of weird stuff that probably didn't do anything good at all, but they did that to gain immortality.
Yeah, well, that's
just
the way it is.
It's
well,
a widespread
I don't know what you do
phenomenon.
about that, because in Jason Reed's stuff, they use cinnabar ink, don't they, a lot as well, right, for their talismans. Isn't cinnabar that kind of mercury type thing?
Yeah, it's mercury.
Is it cinnabar?
Yeah,
It's a red ink. They write all the spells in cinnabar ink, which is, and red ink is a sort of ritual substance all over the world, including for Egypt. It's connected with the god Set. You can think of all the symbolism to do red, but you're right, if there's a cinnabar, in the Chinese tradition they make all their talismans, which they often eat, or they have contact with cinnabar ink, which technically ought to be poisonous. But I don't know, maybe they just seem to do it, don't they?
It probably was over time.
They don't do it anymore. They've got a politically correct version. Yeah. Which maybe connects, because the earliest ritual ink is, of course, red ochre. And we'll maybe see some of that. This is a kind of really ancient ritual substance, the ochre, which you find all over the world used as a ritual substance. Okay, we've had enough. Yeah. They put red.
To make the ink, so if you've got, because usually ochre is like a red powder, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what do you think was wrong? Do you happen to know what else it would be mixed with to create a liquid?
Well, it's sort of natural. It's like a paint, isn't it? You can make oil paint out of red ochre if you just grind it in oil. Makes one of the best oil paints anywhere. Or you can mix it with other things. In the story of Hathor, when she's sort of destroying everything, she gets the bloodlust and decides she's going to kill everybody, kill all of humanity, who are referred to as cattle, human cattle to be eaten by the gods. This is the way they looked at it. She gets bloodlust. The more blood she eats, the more possessed she becomes, and the more she kills, just like Kali. And in the end, the only way to calm her down is to give her a beer with red ochre in it. Yeah? Huh? The wine. Or you can do it with wine. And so the idea is he drinks this red ochre thinking it's blood. Because if you put red ochre tastes of blood, basically. That's one of the things about it. It tastes like human blood. It's got this sort of metallic.
It's got quite a high iron content.
It's basically is an iron oxide-y type thing that becomes a sort of powdery colour paint. It's really lovely. You can find your own versions of it everywhere. You know, dig it out. We've got an ochre mine up on the hill near here that has been existing since prehistoric times, but there's not much left of it. But you can still get that out and you can make the beer. And of course, once he drinks the beer, like a lot of people, the beer monster syndrome, if you like, if I should say that. She drinks the beer, she gets drunk, and instead of thinking about killing things, she thinks about having sex. Right? As I say, beer is the way you... So it distracts her long enough from her slaughtering for her to get drunk and fall down drunk. So in a way, we talk about her major feast is being drunk. Right? It's the feast of drunkenness. Not just her, Seth does it as well. He's into drunkenness. And she gets drunk, and so she doesn't want to kill anybody anymore, which is good. So that distracts her from human sacrifice. Right? Just as well. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. All right.
By the way, you find a similar story about segment. Now, segment is another version of Hathor. Hathor is the main picture of the whole goddess, and she's got many aspects, and segment is one of the Hathor aspects. It's something that is not that obvious, but once you know, the more you learn about Hathor, the more you learn about the other aspects of
That's good. Well, I think I'm going to kind of enough, right? But let's just go around in our own way, and I'll kind of tell you a few things that you ought to look out for. Let's say we're still in the prehistoric gallery of Egypt. We haven't really got to the very famous pharaonic stuff. But in a way, the prehistoric stuff from a magical point of view is so primal. Once you get used to looking at this stuff, because a lot of it, when it was first dug out, people said, "Oh, it's not even Egyptian." They said, "It's not Egyptian. It's Petrie said it's the new race. It's the white tribe of Europe or wherever it is, wandering in Africa." Because he said their material is so unlike. As they worship Set, of course, is a rather weird thing about them. They didn't practice mummification. They probably ate parts of their relatives at death. Right? They practiced chopping the body up into all sorts of bits and licking it and eating bits of it. They, as I say, they didn't believe in mummification. They returned stuff to the elements. They thought, nah, they're nothing like the Egyptians who were mummifying things, have a horror of having their heads chopped off, don't like to be dismembered into all these things. It's completely different, but of course they are as much Egyptian as anything else you can think of. They are the original Egyptians, in fact. They are the indigenous people of Egypt, in one way of looking at things. And they're the ones that we probably most connection to in terms of magic. So I'll just show you there's a few more of these archaic sculptures. You should really see a thing called, I think it's called this one is the two-dog palette, because we're talking about paint. Oh, I thought I'd show you this, because this is astonishing, really. You wouldn't think. This is a representation of the original Egyptians. And you see he's got what's called what do they call that? A penis tube, right? Which means, I don't think it actually goes on the penis, right? I think if you're going to basically be naked most of the time, you put kind of something up, instead of wearing underpants, right? You put a piece of wood, stylized, over the phallus to push it in a bit. Sometimes some tribal groups actually push the penis inside, right? Strangely enough, it is a revolting idea, but people do it. Apparently, if you try it and you're not used to it, it really is weird. but it can go in, it can go inside, and then maybe this held it in place. And they've got this sort of bulbous head, a bit like the sort of Mesopotamian type stuff, and you can see the bulbous head there. And so they're practices, but you'll find, you know, sort of memories of it. Let's try not to get distracted by it. So let's go look at the two-dog palette, and that's it. So all of this stuff here is really, you would say this is the Setian material, or from the people, probably from a tribal group within Egypt who were followers of Set, who were probably wiped out eventually by the followers of Horus. And there's stuff again, it looks quite strange, but you'll find Setian images in them and all the rest, but too many things that, and this picture on the back is a representation of one of their tombs, which again looks very tribal, but if you look carefully you'll see images in it that in later times, say for instance the boat image is very, very important in Egyptian culture, and there's a sort of prehistoric version of it. This would have been painted around the tomb. There's another important, anyway, this is a representation. There's a kind of crown, red crown on this red ware, so red ware again, which again the colour red, right? No colour or symbol in this tradition is accidental. It's always intentional, but people just get used to it. It's got a representation on this very early part of the red crown of Egypt, which is Set's crown. And it's on red, what's called blacktop redware. And you can see there's lots of redware, painted redware. There's a hippopotamus, which is the avatar of the god Set. But let's say there's the fish. There's the fish that ate the phallus of Osiris. Fantastic. Look at this weird anthropomorphic part with a sort of creature on it. You see, if you dug this stuff up, you probably wouldn't think it was Egyptian, but it really is. Okay, so the two-dog palette, the final thing.
Okay.
One of the masterpieces of world art. Here it is in a bloody museum. One of the important mysteries of Egyptian magic is to do with makeup. Basically, we talked about red ochre. How you can turn that into makeup and body paint, so body painting. And every Egyptian had one of these little palettes, decorated palettes, to grind up their face paint, and they were usually buried with it, but this is a sort of more of a ceremonial one, right, for a whole tribe, for probably the followers of Horus. Yeah, this is what's called the main deposit from Hierakonpolis, which means the citadel of the hawk. So these are the people of Horus who eventually destroy the people of Set. They don't completely destroy them, they sort of enslave them in a way. Or it becomes an ethnic minority within Egypt. That's another way of doing it. The redheads. Some people say they got red hair, and the red people with red hair have a reputation.
Red face paint.
Red face paint, red hair. The personality of Set is very red, isn't it? He's drunk. He's always angry. He's passionate, and they may even have had red hair. There's an classical account that people with red hair were sacrificed, human sacrifice, by the followers of Horus, or by maybe even by Hassel. There was a row between two different cities in the town, and someone maybe did something to one of the sacred animals of Horus. So they raided the city. They slaughtered most of the inhabitants, and they ate them. They ate people, not too many, but they started symbolically eating them. Which that's there in the classical accounts. Nobody knows if it's true or not.
Eat the magic.
What?
Eat the magic.
They're
The
eating
old
their
people.
magic. That's absolutely true. We talked about magic is the thing you eat. So if you really want to absorb someone's baraka and magic, you physically eat them. But of course, the Thelemites, we sort of eat each other. Crowley devised a technique of eating human flesh, basically, wasn't it? In which nobody suffers, because it's voluntary. It's menstrual blood, maybe menstrual blood or blood and semen. But essentially, that is human flesh, But we just don't tell her. We say, oh, whatever. So Crowley kind of revived an Egyptian practice of eating symbolic flesh in one way or another. Obviously, it died out and it got in Egypt itself. They didn't really like it.
This is my body, this is my blood.
Yeah, exactly. The Eucharist magic that's where it comes from. It must do.
It just changed. Christians went, we're going to borrow a bit of that.
It's such a powerful and useful ritual to eat the flesh or human substances connected with the magic that you want to absorb. Almost every religion does it, but they disguise it in various forms.
Yeah.
Or they say the priest transforms it magically in the process of the Mass, transforms the wine from Hathor into blood. And some Christians believe that still. And then they say, Thelemites, I think it's powerful. Anyway, so that's the two. So this would have been for the whole people of the city of Horus, and they were in the centre. You've got these fantastical beasts on it. I think there is a representation of various animals, including, I think Set is actually on there somewhere. And you got the central thing where you would grind away your red ochre to make make eye makeup, and the wearing of eye makeup, you come before me in a rich headdress and all that sort of stuff. It could be interpreted as some sort of eye makeup. And wearing eye makeup is a kind of way of shielding yourself from magical influences and demons, or whatever you want to call it. So they would have ground the perfume and the red in there, and that was buried under the city as a ritual offering. I think it's under the bowl. There's a sort of looks like a jackal. On that one, which again is symbolic mace. See, these things may not look so important, but they're kind of, in terms of our history, they're kind of extraordinary. I nearly got these things, but there you go. So again, it's a symbolic mace head of the early unifying king of Egypt, who was called King Scorpion. And he's called King Scorpion if you want to read the hieroglyphics, because there is the king. You see that? Dressed like a pharaoh, with a conical crown, the Osirian crown, the hoe, and just to the right of him is Scorpion. So his name, this is very archaic, is King Scorpion, and he's one of the most important kings of Egyptian timeline. This is obviously a record of a battle, probably between the followers of Horus and the followers of Set, or maybe some other people. And as a result of the battle, the symbolic standards, the symbolic bird, known as the lapwing, is hung from the standard of each of the cities that they conquered. And on one of the standards is an image, the earliest image in history of the god Set. This is tiny, right? You wouldn't even think it was worth noting, but you can it's probably a bit faded now. It's one of those in there. If you look at the drawing, it will show you it. See the little drawing? See the top register? We've got a lapwing, which is a sacred bird, representing ordinary people, representing the working class, the lapwing. And then on the top of the place where the lapwing is hanging, is a tiny little, like an aardvark type figure with square ears and an arrow tail. And that is Set. Definitely is. There you go. How about that? All right. So that's the section looking at the prehistoric stuff. I really like this stuff. If you go in there, you'll see all the pharaonic things. Look out for Sobek. Probably one of the best images of Sobek anywhere you're ever going to see. Look out for the Uraeus serpent on the head as a representation of manifestation of magic. And look out for the shrine of Taharqa, which is an entire shrine dedicated to the 10 spheres of the creator god Amun. Amun has 10 forms. Perhaps that's the origin of the tenfold symbolism that you find all over the place. Anyway, there you go. That's enough.
Okay. Thank you.
I never done that.
Let you off your leash now.